again. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
We're the horror guys, and we're here to talk about some horror movies.
Episode 101. And we, as usual, we've got 4 films and a short for you. What do we got this week?
Well, we've got The Host from 2020.
And just to clarify, it's not The Host.
Oh, it's just Host.
It's just
Host without the the.
There's a whole different movie, The Host, with a giant Korean monster attacking Korea.
It's not that one.
It's not that one.
The Creepshow Holiday Special.
And here we are in February recording this, and it's a good Christmassy show.
Yeah, well, not too timely, but, but it was really good.
We're running a little behind, but it's still worth watching if you haven't seen it.
Another 2020 film called Breakdown.
Yep.
And one called The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which is a new movie too. We got all these new movies.
Yeah. And a short film.
And a short film too.
All right. So are they all fantastic this week? Are they wonderful films?
Not all fantastic, but
it's going to be one of those weeks.
It's a mixed bag, in my opinion.
Okay, and as always, like I said, we're a little bit behind on our podcast. Most of these reviews showed up in December or January on horrorguys.com. So if you stop over at the website, you can read up and get current, even though we never are anymore.
I blame you.
Yeah, I do too. All right, what do you want to do first?
Let's talk about the Creepshow Holiday Special.
All right. Well, we did our review of the Creepshow series, which shows on Shudder, and it's still available on Shudder all the time. It has been renewed for a second season, and it was, and we both had some mixed thoughts on that one. It was not awesome, I didn't think.
It failed the awesome test.
Yeah.
But it was okay.
It was thoroughly adequate.
It was thoroughly adequate. That's a good way to put it, yeah.
But the Creepshow Holiday Special, they held that one back and released it, believe it or not, right around Christmas time.
And this one was especially good.
It was also especially long.
Yes.
One of our complaints with the other Creepshow was that all the segments were way down, like 20 minutes long.
And they kind of felt chopped.
Yeah.
This one's too short.
This one's 46 minutes, and it's got a real full story, and we both liked it.
They could really go all out on it.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah.
Directed by Greg Nicotero, the Walking Dead guy. Stars Anna Camp, Adam Pally, and Pete Burris. 46 very long minutes for a short. And the title of this episode is called Shapeshifters Anonymous. And you did like it.
Oh, yeah, I liked it a lot. Yes.
Yeah, so did I. All right, well, it starts out, the creep, the host-type character who really doesn't do very much.
He introduces the show. And,
he doesn't, though. He doesn't speak. He doesn't really... He's the most useless horror host I think I've ever seen.
It's not one with a where he really ties the story together or anything.
Yeah, they'll have him there and he'll look out a window, or he'll open a door, or he'll get off the chair.
Cackle. There's a lot of cackling.
Yeah, but he doesn't say anything.
No, not really.
So the creep looks out the window at the full moon. Then he turns into Chewbacca. Or maybe it's supposed to be a sad-looking werewolf. Credits roll.
I think it's a sad-looking werewolf.
He looked more like Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Actually, he looked like that woman in the laughing Chewbacca mask.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, quite a bit.
First she laughed for 20 minutes.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Yeah, it looked like that. Not scary.
No. But then the Creepshow was kind of not scary. I mean, some of the episodes in the old series were downright scary, but mostly it's a lot of humor in them.
Yeah, definitely a lot. Based on comic books, so gotta have the comic side of that.
Yeah.
Well, this guy, Robert, goes to the basement of a church to go into the Shapeshifters Anonymous meeting.
Please let me in. Yes, he's kind of big for admission.
Yeah, and they finally do decide to let him in, and it's a small group. Turns out he's been finding human remains in his toilet of all places, and now he thinks he may be a cannibal.
Werewolf.
You might be a cannibal if... Actually, he says cannibal.
Okay, at first he thinks
Yeah, he's
cannibal.
not that specific.
Yeah.
He explains that his doctor thinks he needs to see a psychiatrist, but the group disagrees, so he tells his story. Well, all his victims had been really bad people. The Shapeshifters Anonymous lady, Irina, explains that they usually find evil is tastier.
Okay. Extra seasoning.
Well, this is kind of a mixed group. There's a were-turtle, a were-boar, and a were-cheetah, and a furry.
And a guy who we don't know what he is.
And a guy who never talks.
He never talks, and he always comes to the meetings. We don't know what's up with him.
Well, Robert assumed he was a werewolf, but had assumed that he was a werewolf himself, but the others laugh at that. They have a way of testing him, and he is, in fact, a real werewolf.
I guess that's kind of a rarity. Everybody thinks, because the werewolves are cool. And,
Yeah, if you're a were-turtle, you only wish you were a werewolf. They've literally never had one in the group before. Well, he flashes back to an old woman in his apartment who says he brushes his teeth too loudly. "I curse you," she shouts. That's a good reason to curse someone.
That's all it took.
Later on, he eats her and her little dog, too. Then they all recite the pledge for the group, which has something to do with avoiding Santa Claus. They explain that Santa is a shapeshifter hunter. And they explain about the disciple Bob, a legendary werewolf, and his sworn enemy, Kris Kringle. Just then, the hunters attack the building. They have all kinds of defenses, and Santa's helpers come in as an army.
Like an army of Santa Claus.
Hundreds of Santa's helpers, like department store Santas.
Yeah, like department store Santas.
You got the short ones and the tall ones, the black ones and the white ones, yeah. Well, there's a battle and lots of explosions, which are depicted in comic book style for budgetary reasons.
But still, the effects were all overall pretty good. Yeah.
And this is the part that Robert has trouble believing.
Only this part, yeah.
The were-turtle was fine. The furry was fine. But no, the Santa Clauses. Well, as the army of Santas break in the door, they all fight back. They kick the Santa's asses. And then the real Santa arrives.
Kris Kringle himself.
With his Satan's claws.
Satan's claws,
yeah. Uh-huh. And it starts getting weird after that.
It starts getting weird, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. So there's degrees of weirdness in this.
And it ramps up.
Yes.
For such a short story, this feels kind of long. It's got some humor, actually a lot of humor, but there's also a lot of talking. All the action goes on in a single room, so there's just one set, and everything kind of feels a little low budget. And it was a little slow until they got into the Book of Bob and the new mythology that was new for everyone. The creature effects are nearly as funny as all the Santa puns. By the time it's over, you're invested in the characters, and it's actually really good. Better than most of the actual Creepshow stories from the new series.
Definitely beats the new series, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there were some good ones in this series.
Some, yeah. But yeah, this is right up there with my favorites. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so how about some modern 2020 action?
We saw The Host.
Which could not be more appropriate for the year 2020, because it's all done through Zoom.
Through video calls.
If you always thought Zoom meetings were the height of terror, well, you could be right. Directed by Rob Savage, written by Gemma Hurley. Is it Gemma or Gemma? How do you pronounce that name?
I think usually Gemma.
Gemma Hurley and Rob Savage. Stars Haley Bishop, Gemma Moore, and Emma Louise Webb. It's a short one at only 57 minutes. And this is available on, I want to say, Shudder again. Maybe Netflix. Maybe somewhere else. I should make notes of these things. Did you like it?
Not very much.
Okay, I did.
You liked it a lot more than I did.
We disagree.
We disagree on this one.
Okay.
It didn't work for me. It didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't scary. I didn't find it scary or suspenseful, really. I just thought, oh, look, it's a bunch of people making video calls, and stuff's happening, and oh, look, more stuff's happening. And,
well, stuff did happen.
Something happened off camera. Okay, yeah, that was scary. Okay, yeah. I don't know. It didn't work for me.
Well, let's come back to that. So Haley starts a Zoom call with Gemma, and they have some technical problems. Lag and audio feedback goes crazy. Before long, there are 6 people in the chat. They talk for a bit about personal nonsense, and then they play with face swapping and overlays, and the call seems very realistic with the technology and the small talk. Because Zoom talks are never all that productive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, they're trying to have fun, too. They're not really like taking a class or anything.
Right, yeah, it's not serious.
So one guy, Teddy, has a music box that creeps him out. It used to scare him as a child. They bring in Salon, who is a medium. They're going to do a seance on their Zoom call, and they've each brought a thing called a focal object. She explains that since they're doing this over Zoom, they might be a little less protected than they would be holding hands in a circle. And Teddy drops out and hangs up. Bad connect. Oh no, his wife came in and wanted sex or something.
Yep.
Yeah, he had to stop. Well, the seance begins. There's a knock on Ceylon's door, and she says it's a package delivery. She comes back and they start for real. Ceylon drops off the call, and the others continue on without her. Nobody needs a medium for these things, do they?
Yeah. Do they or do they not? Yeah.
Gemma screams that someone is touching on her neck. Someone named Jack from school is there with her. He was nice to her once, but he hanged himself. The others start getting creeped out, and she smiles and admits that she made the whole thing up. Just kidding. Well, they all start yelling at each other, and then they see Haley get dragged across the room on her chair. She goes to investigate, and we watch her walk through the house. They got like a selfie stick. Carolyn hears noises in the room behind her as well. She pulls down the ladder to the attic and goes up to investigate. We get a brief glimpse of legs hanging in view of the camera, but then it's gone. Things start happening to all of them. They call Ceylon back by phone, whose internet has gotten flaky. She says they've disrespected the spirits, and they've summoned a false spirit. It could be anything. They do what Ceylon suggests, and they think it's all over. Of course, it's not all over. One by one, bad things start happening to each of them, all on camera. Teddy pops back in briefly, but then it goes after him as well. Soon, there's only Gemma left. Will she be the final girl and escape the spirit? Tune in and find out.
Yeah, you should see it for yourself and find out.
Well, the Zoom gimmick I thought was a good idea. They can use cheap cameras and bad sound, and it all just sort of adds to the authenticity of everything.
Yeah, it did.
It's definitely not, big budget quality. The scene with the facial recognition of the ghost is really brilliant. The Zoom sees the ghost and the rest of us don't. I'm not remembering that too much.
Yeah. Facial recognition picked up in the background. Yeah, that like somebody else was in the room.
Yeah. Well, the seance procedure is all explained by Ceylon, and it seems like what a real seance might be like if you were ever on a seance in a Zoom call. Not that I've ever been in one. Once things start happening, it's very intense and suspenseful. There's not a lot of wasted filler once it gets started, and the whole thing is under an hour. I really like that they didn't feel the need to add unnecessary padding to fill out 90 minutes. And I think that may be what I liked best about it. It was short.
It was short and got to the point.
Well, yeah, too many of these things have long, talky fillers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it does have that going for it, I guess.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, overall, just couldn't.
Okay,
Yeah.
So actually both of those were pretty short. Creepshow was 46 minutes and the host was 57 minutes. But our official short film of the week is, it's shorter.
Suey!
I'm right here.
Wasn't really talking to you necessarily. Yeah. This is Day of the Pigs, a 2020 short film that was... Boy, it was something.
It was. It was written and directed by Michael S. Rodriguez. Stars Sparkle Sujian, Nikki Jones-Curtis, Tino Zamora, Manuel Ramirez, Art Paul, and Ryan Walker. 12 minutes, and there's a link in the show notes to watch it.
It's available for free.
Did you like it?
All to see. I did. Yes, I thought it was a hoot.
It was something, yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't what I was expecting.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, yeah.
Not at all.
It's not great film. It's not a classic, but I thought it was very entertaining.
It's worth
very
12
fun.
minutes, yes.
Yeah.
Manny Guerrero and El Apache rush in with guns drawn. It's a robbery. They kill the security guard rather excessively.
And they're dressed as, they got the Mexican wrestler masks to disguise themselves.
Yeah.
adding to the absurdity.
Well, if you're gonna
although
wear a
it's
mask,
legit. Yeah, it's a legit disguise.
So anyway, the car breaks down, and Guerrero is shot in the chest. They argue about belts and stretch pants for a while, and then they kill him. They burn the car and the body. We change scenes to two women, and they are hungry for men. The two robbers show up, planning to steal their car. Now the guys have a decision to make. Take the car or enjoy the company of the women. And then things get weird.
Very
you knew
weird.
from the title that pigs were involved somehow, right?
Yep, they are. They
Yep.
certainly are.
Well, this one's well shot, looks good, and has a good story. The acting is pretty good, but they didn't cast these women for their acting chops.
Spoiler alert, they're hot girls. Hot girls, they needed to be hot girls, so yeah.
Yeah.
They were okay.
It's one of those shorts that does have a full story, but doesn't really explain why certain things happen.
They just do.
Still, it's a fun short, and definitely not what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely surprises.
Thumbs up, for sure.
Yeah. All right, and then we've got I don't know how indie this is, but...
It certainly had an indie vibe to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it was or not, I mean, it just...
We'll call it a low-budget film with an indie vibe.
And I would call it a winner, too.
Yeah, Breakdown from 2020. Directed by Thomas Haley, written by Dan Jagels. Stars Thomas Haley, so written and directed by him. Also, Corey Sorensen, Jessica Cameron, hour and 28 minutes. Did you like Breakdown?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Uh-huh.
And again, this one is Breakdown. It's not The Breakdown.
Right,
so,
just Breakdown. Yeah.
Whole different film.
And it's, I was impressed with his, how well he could carry it so long with so little dialogue. There was... sometimes he talks to himself, but a lot of the movie he's just there by himself, and it's just him.
Yeah, he runs into
Others
like
come and
3
go.
other people, but each of their scenes lasts maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's almost entirely him alone.
I thought that was impressive that he was able to carry that and make it interesting.
And he did. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, a woman jogging on the beach finds a man laying there by the water. He's alive, but bloody and sick looking.
Uh-oh.
Please help, he says as he dies. The girl screams as credits roll.
It's a plague! It's a plague!
One of those Asian plague-looking things, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
We are told that infected people filled the hospitals as doctors raced to find a cure. Life, as we know it, has changed. Wait, it's a plague movie?
This is a much worse plague than COVID, though.
So far. You got to say so far.
Well, yeah, so far. Okay, so far. Anyway, yeah. It's much worse than anything in real life.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Tim Reynolds sneaks into a doctor's office and locks the door. He's hiding from someone out there. He digs around and finds some Spam and energy bars. He feeds his mouse, Rufus, some of it, and he sits down to sleep, looks at pictures of his dead family, and starts to cry. He finds a mannequin with a name tag that says Gabriel on it. Tim gets to work researching for a cure for the virus. We hear that he's been working for 13 days, but he's had no luck. Rufus the mouse is still healthy, so he knows there is a vaccine possible.
Yep,
but
he's on the trail.
But he can't find the right one. He's got lesions all over his skin, under his clothes, and he's coughing up blood.
Yeah, clearly he's got it, and he's racing against the clock to...
It's also never quite clear what
he knows.
He is. Is he a researcher? Is he just a doctor? Is he some guy who knows some medicine? He doesn't really come off as a doctor-y type.
We don't know for sure.
But he seems to know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a banging at the door, and Tim has an attack and passes out. He wakes up surrounded by doctors who want to send him away. Then Tim wakes up and sees that he was just dreaming about the doctors. He's lying on the floor of the office still.
Tripping, yep.
He searches the place and finds a gun and 1 bullet. Uh-oh. Later, he finds a dog, but the dog belongs to 2 other guys who have broken into the same office. He hides, and they leave, and they never do find him. Easily avoided.
Mm-hmm.
He finds a dead girl there in the office and gives her the closest thing to a funeral that he can manage in that office. He shoves her into the filing room.
Well,
buried among paperwork.
Work with what you got.
Then he finds a live girl who passes out. He patches her up and she explains that she wants to go to Zone 6, which surprises Tim. Her name is Kimberly, and she was told that Zone 6 is helping the sick people. Tim has heard they're more like concentration camps. She leaves him fairly quickly, eager to be on her way. Tim watches as the CDC guys sedate her and put her back in the SUV. Yep, concentration camp.
Yeah, forced isolation.
Yeah. Tim starts talking to Gabriel the mannequin, and before long, he starts hearing it talk back.
Yeah, he's really tripping on fever and the disease. And yeah.
Gabriel convinces Tim to keep working on a cure. After an experimentation montage, he has an injection to test, but Rufus is pretty badly off. Tim needs to get to the lab tomorrow in order to get enough materials to make more for himself, as Rufus has now fully recovered. The cure works!
Hooray!
He writes the formula for the cure down and then dies before he ever gets out of the office. There are flashing lights outside. Did he call for the CDC? Will anyone find the paper with the cure written on it? Will they just burn the building down? We don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit of upsetting uncertainty at the end there.
Yeah,
he just wrote it down on are they going to notice that piece of paper? Are they just going to,
Are they going to be in a position to do anything about it if they did read it?
Well, my assumption would be, that they would know the cure and could mass produce it, possibly. But it just seemed like, are they even going to notice that paper or think anything of it?
Yeah. Well, it's got a really good soundtrack for a low-budget film, although it plays some pretty anticlimactic chords in odd places. Who knew stripping insulation from a wire could be so dramatic?
Music adds a lot.
Yeah. Well, the soundtrack is especially important here since the huge majority of this film has no dialogue, and it's often just Tim talking to himself. Most of the film takes place in a dark, dimly lit office, and yet you can see everything. This is how you do a dark scene.
Yeah, the cinematographer knew what they were doing.
Yeah. I'll get one nitpick, and it's a big one.
What's that?
Tim goes to sleep next to a fish tank that still had living fish.
Oh, and it's supposedly been weeks.
It's been weeks. They've had no food or electricity in the tank.
Yeah.
And at one point he uses a payphone without putting in any money.
Really? I missed that.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
okay.
Yep.
Huh.
Could a microwave really be run off a single car battery?
That seems like it's pushing it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's possible. I don't know, but it doesn't seem likely a 12-volt battery.
Maybe.
With nothing in the middle.
He's a smart guy. He's practically a sorcerer.
Well, it's more of a psychological drama than a real horror film.
Yeah, but it was low on horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a post-plague apocalyptic world, so that sort of counts. And it is very much a one-man show, and Thomas Haley really pulls it off. It's slow-paced, and not really that much happens. But by all rights, it ought to be really boring. But it wasn't. It was actually very good.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised because when it started that way, I was thinking, this is... We're going to watch this for an hour? But it was interesting, yeah.
It's an hour and a half, full-length movie this time.
Hour and a half total, yeah. But it entertained, yeah.
Definitely worth a shot. And our last film this week.
My favorite.
Oh.
My favorite of the four.
The Wolf of Snow Hollow, also from 2020. I think this may be my favorite of the four also.
This one's so good, I wouldn't mind seeing it again.
Now, first of all, let me point out at this one here, we're going to spoil this one all over the place. And this is one of those films that you don't want to see spoiled.
So if you haven't seen it and you don't want it, yeah.
Press pause, go watch The Wolf of Snow Hollow, and then come back and see how much we liked it.
Yeah, can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah. Don't listen to the rest of this if you have not seen it, because, it's good. All right, well, it's written, directed, and stars Jim Cummings. Very much a one-man show there.
Yeah, again, a one-man show.
But this one has other people in it. It's got Ricky Lindholm and Robert Forster. And I don't know what the story with Robert Forster was. They probably made this... Well, I'm sure they made this before he died. But he actually dies in the movie. So I don't know how the timing with that worked out. Because he died in real life probably about the time they were filming this, I would guess.
Yeah, I don't know how the timing worked out. But yeah, and I wondered if they had, how much they had intended his part to be bigger. Yeah, we just don't know there. Yeah, how his health was.
Well, he didn't really do anything, but his bad health in the movie was a pretty important plot point. So he may never have intended to be the star.
And how much was he faking it? Yeah.
Well, he had dementia in the movie. I don't think Robert Forster had dementia. He was working up to the end.
But old and feeble.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How much was he faking that? And,
Yeah, no way to tell.
yeah.
So you liked it.
Yes, very much.
I liked it too. Okay, so a young couple arrive at their rental cabin. They have dinner at a local restaurant, and we see some of the town as the credits roll. The man yells at a couple of locals trying to start a fight, but they don't bite. They drive back to their cabin, and these are annoying city folks who have more money than sense. Brienne, the girl, is killed by something off screen. The sheriff is old and deteriorating mentally, so his officers, including his son John, are really handling the case for him. He's struggling to keep his weaknesses hidden.
And John is helping.
Yeah.
Propping him up.
Actually, John's kind of really running the thing unofficially behind the scenes.
Very much so, yeah.
And he's not doing a real good job of it.
Oh, he's stressing about it.
Yeah.
And he's got issues, and yeah.
So they question those two local guys that didn't get involved with the fight, but it doesn't look like they were really involved. Certain body parts were removed from the dead girl, so they're sure it's not a wild animal. Very specific things were removed.
Suspiciously specific.
That night, the local ski instructor is attacked in the parking lot of the resort. We still don't see it, but it's clearly a werewolf. This time, her head is missing. John, the deputy, is a recovering alcoholic with family problems, and we see he's under a lot of pressure, which he does not handle well. There's no such thing as werewolves, he insists. The medical examiner says there was wolf hair and bites on the body. John tells his daughter to start carrying pepper spray. The next we see, Liz, a mother and her small daughter at the diner, talking to a man we don't see, but he's just off screen. She quickly gets creeped out by the guy and calls the police. The old sheriff knows that John is struggling, and he wants to help, but John just can't work with the old man anymore. The mother and daughter from the diner are killed that night. John opens up a beer that he had hidden away, and then he starts guzzling mouthwash till he passes out.
He has fallen off the wagon. Yeah.
Yeah, when you start guzzling the mouthwash, you know you have
that's desperate.
made some poor choices.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we see a man with a tattoo of a wolf burning a dead body the next morning. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
The next night, the police are out in force, heavily armed. John's daughter heads over to her boyfriend's house, and they have sex in his car. The werewolf attacks as a neighbor calls the police. John shows up and shoots it a couple of times. They find one of the cops stuffed in a garbage can later that night. Also, the sheriff dies in the hospital from his heart condition, and John misses the whole thing. Oops.
Yeah.
So that's where Robert Forster kind of bows out of the movie kind of suddenly. There was no death scene.
No,
which
there wasn't.
You'd think there might have been.
Yeah, don't know. Or writer's choice. Or yeah.
By not being there, that kind of builds up the guilt for John.
It certainly did, yeah.
Yeah. Since there's no full moon, there's no more murders. They find the guy with the wolf tattoo, but he's dead. He's overdosed on drugs, with enough evidence to believe he was the killer.
Case closed.
Yeah, no problem. John is still drinking heavily because he didn't catch the guy, and also guilt about not being there for his father's passing. He does start going back to AA and doing his job again. That's Alcoholics Anonymous, not Shapeshifters Anonymous.
Right.
John is delivering some old evidence to Paul, the local taxidermist, who invites him inside to talk about the case. John notices just how tall Paul is, and that Paul seems to be hiding that fact. He walks all bent over and stooped. John finds a head and body parts inside, and then Paul stabs him. John tries to pursue Paul, but Paul puts on a werewolf costume.
He has taxidermied himself into a werewolf.
Assembled out of real animal parts.
Yes, that's why there was real bite marks and real fur. And one of the clues that they mentioned was, well, it's strange, there's no saliva.
Yeah.
I picked up on that after. That's why there was no saliva, because it wasn't. Yeah,
but there was wolf teeth marks and wolf fur. Yeah, he made it. He made himself a werewolf
with claws and teeth and everything.
Yeah. So he escapes and runs out through the woods. John and his deputy shoot Paul repeatedly, which finally does kill him because he's not really a werewolf. Then John falls over from his own wounds. Later, we see that John has resigned and Deputy Julia has become the new sheriff.
Which is a happy ending for her.
And him too, really.
She deserved that. She was working her butt off, and talk about someone qualified for the job.
And it was clear that he was not really well suited to it.
Yeah, she was definitely covering for everybody.
Yeah.
And yeah, I liked that.
Yeah. Well, we see early on that there is a werewolf involved, so it's no surprise. Jim Cummings does a great job showing us that he's under a lot of pressure and not handling it well. Actually, the amount of pressure and his struggling was to the point of dark comedy after a while. It quickly becomes clear that John is in the wrong job at the wrong time. About anything he can get wrong, he does. He's a crappy cop.
It doesn't go smoothly, yeah.
And this was Robert Forster's last role before his death, and you have to consider how much of his health impacted the amount of screen time in this film. The sheriff was meant to be old and failing, and clearly frustrated with that. How much of it was acting? We don't know. And the twist at the end was a new one, and it was a real surprise, which is a really good thing. I didn't see that coming.
No, I didn't either.
I mean, everybody kept saying there's no such things as werewolves, but it was so obviously a werewolf.
It was a werewolf.
We even saw it early on.
Yeah, dashing around all hairy and tall and claws and yeah.
Overall,
and leaving footprints. There was physical evidence and fur and
Overall, I liked it a lot.
Yes,
definitely. I think that's the best of the week.
Yep, I think so.
And they were all pretty good.
Well, Zoom.
You didn't care so much for Host.
I didn't care for it. Or Host. Yeah, I called it Zoom. Yeah,
Zoom. Yes.
Host. Yeah, I didn't. I'd give that a less than 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was successful
work
and worked because of the timeliness. Everybody's doing Zoom. Everybody's staying home. Everybody's done one of those kind of calls. Mm-hmm. And the seance thing was kind of a neat idea. You thought it was boring.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Didn't like it. But that's just me.
Well, that is our show for this time. Get ready for next week where we'll be watching some more classics.
Like The Island of Lost Souls from 1932. And that's an Island of Dr. Moreau.
The first adaptation of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah.
And it's amazing if you've seen the newer 2. I think there's only 2. The newest one with Marlon Brando and the one before that with Michael York and that other guy. That other guy, yeah. They both borrow heavily from this one. It was good. We'll talk about it next week. Well, then we'll jump forward a few decades with The Incredible Shrinking Man.
From 1957.
Yeah. Move into the modern age with The Cleansing Hour from 2020.
And finally, we have Annihilation from 2018, which is one I had been wanting to see for a while. That's science fiction.
I put that one off for a long time thinking it was science fiction. I thought it took place on another planet, and it really doesn't.
Yeah, it's on Earth.
Yeah, it is.
And it does, very, very
it's
much horror elements.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.